One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message. Cops say legalize drugs.
In my personal opinion, is what has happened as the NSA has gathered more intelligence, it has given it a much broader issues. Russ, for some reason, I have some feedback.
I think we just got that fixed. Is it better for you now?
Okay, that's better. Yeah, it was coming back at me. So let me rephrase that. So the biggest issue is because technology has advanced so fast. I think now is all the issues are going to start coming out, but law enforcement's been doing this for a long time. And so from a local law enforcement level is we've had people on both the Joint Terrorism Task Forces and other narcotics task forces going back to the 1980s when I was in law enforcement from 83 to 2004. But what would happen is you weren't getting the prevalence of the masses amount of intelligence or information because there wasn't that much. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But what would happen is the NSA has been in existence for a long time. The Special Operations Division has been in existence for a long time. We were just getting less tips and less leads. And so the DEA has always filtered information to task forces, to local law enforcement agencies, and what would happen is you would have to what's called wall off the information. So you have to remember as pretextual stops were affirmed by the Supreme Court years ago. And so, you don't have to tell people why you're stopping them. You could have any number of reasons, and the only way it's not going to be upheld is unless you can prove that there's some racial bias or some other disparate conduct that would make it not constitutional. But so it's always been there. It's just a lot more prevalent now.
Is that to say that in the case of pretextual stops that cops are pretty much open to any pretext so long as it's not one of the federally classified protected classes like race or religion?
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So
yes. So that was I believe it was an Illinois case called Wren v. Illinois, WHREN, and I have to break open my law books again to really qualify that and go back. But so law enforcement's subjective mind doesn't matter. So here's how it would work. So let's say that we have an agency that's rolling through our city, a task force agency that's rolling through our city, and they need a traffic stop done. So there's DEA's given information to whoever it happens to be. They've initiated a wire that's been court approved. They've conducted surveillance. And then what happens is they will set it up because they know that they're going to want this person stopped at a particular place. And so they will coordinate with whatever local law enforcement agency is and make certain that there's a canine close by as well as the traffic stop. And then a legal traffic stop is done because, quite frankly, In California, the California Vehicle Code has 18 provisions and, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of pages of things that you can pull people over for when they're driving their car.
It seems to me the scandal isn't so much the pretext stop or the cops getting the tip from the DEA. It's this, what Russ Jones called creative report writing to omit any evidence that they were involved. And I imagine they would claim, national security or classified info for this, but is that really the case?
That's exactly what they would claim. Is that what you would get is, we can't tell you where this information came from. We're just going to tell you that there's dope or money in the car. And you have to come up with a legal, constitutionally valid purpose and way to stop the car. But that raises all sorts of other issues that haven't been explored, which is people's right to confront their accusers, is exculpatory evidence. I mean, it throws the whole monkey wrench into the whole entire judicial system.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is not only are the cops walled off from where the information is coming from, but the district attorney's walled off from where the information is coming from. So they can actually tell a defense attorney, hey, this is what we have.
You mentioned that this has been going on for a long time, but that part of what has exposed this is just the volume of data and the volume of tips that are now available thanks to technology. And that kind of segues us a little bit into the recent revelations from the NSA, from Edward Snowden and before him Bradley Manning, as to just how much our government is listening in on our private domestic conversations. Do you think that's part of why this has gained some traction in the media, the combination of this with the whistleblower stories?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what is happening, I think there's that, and then I think Americans are finally becoming much more astute about, the security state and everything that's occurred, not just post 9/11, but that was started by the war on drugs. Because clearly the most significant constitutional issues evolved out of the affirmation of the Supreme Court on the incremental losses of our civil liberties, whether it's search or seizure or any other, First Amendment rights for free speech. I mean, I think that's the critical component. This started 40 years ago with Richard Nixon, and now it's blowing up, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's good that people are finding out about this, but what can be done to stop it? It sounds like everything that's gone on here has been legal, at least technically so. I mean, I know Department of Justice is conducting an investigation, but it sounds like they're investigating themselves. So what do you think will happen?
Yeah, and that's, it's funny because that's the whole problem, because so who's going to investigate Congress and who's going to investigate DOJ and DEA? Because Congress approved all these. And so it's almost, I don't want to call it, a counter-revolution, but it's almost like we have got to start electing folks that understand and respect what American civil liberties are about and who don't kowtow to, that perception of security. Right now it's what the NSA is doing by sending information down isn't making us any safer, because we know, like everything else, it's mission creep. Is when the Patriot Act happened, when the FISA letters started going out, the ACLU had a great blog on it. I think that they took a aggregate number of years to see exactly what the sneak and peek warrants were, and they're out of like almost 1,500 or more. It's like over 1,400 were just for narcotics, and 7 were for terrorism, and the others were for some type of fraud.
Yeah,
yeah, you remember that.
Yeah, it was very, very shocking, and they displayed it as a bar graph, and you just had this little tiny sliver that had to actually do with terrorism.
Exactly. And so, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, is if you give law enforcement, which is very bureaucratic in nature, tools that don't have a lot of accountability on either side, law enforcement's going to take that tool and run with it.
Yeah,
and And so there's no balance, there's no accountability. And it's no different than, which is, one of the other things that LEAP has preached about for a long time, is why you see so much of the racial disparity issues is because we police differently in inner city communities than we do out in the suburbs. Because, busting kids for pot who are gang members is easy to solve a short-term problem.
And they might not be as likely to bring a high-priced lawyer into the courtroom with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
We're speaking with Diane Goldstein with LEAP, a retired lieutenant commander with Redondo Beach Police Department, on this DEA, and it's SOD, Special Operations Division. If you want to Google this and find out more about what's going on. What's happening now with you, Diane? I know you're all around the country and you're speaking at various events. Are there any public appearances people could catch you at coming up soon?
You know what? I'm actually going to be in San Francisco up at INCHI on September 7th. And today I'm leaving right after our conversation to go drive over to Riverside to speak at the Young Republicans. And it's been really busy. I mean, it's good. I think that there's a lot of great things going. I'm going to take it and run with what Sanjay Gupta just came out with. That's brilliant.
I know. I've got a little bit of a rant on that coming up next. We'll talk about Sanjay Gupta's evolution on that. And boy, he's come quite around on this, and it gives us some hope that other people that are, now that one person has admitted, okay, I was wrong, they were lying, more people can come out and say that.
Well, and I think that clearly there's a couple things going on which are real interesting to tie Sanjay Gupta in with the SOD and then the Drug Policy Alliance. Right now, the Drug Policy Alliance has sent out kind of a mass email. They're asking people to sign one of their petitions demanding Congress investigate the DEA. And I think they're right. And I think we need to have full-blown congressional hearings because the DEA is misleading the American public in so many different ways. They're holding science hostage. They are, passing on information and walling things off so people don't have the ability to defend themselves. Their whole entire policy needs to be blown up. I actually believe that in some aspects is not necessarily defund the DEA, but create a different type of agency. And you have some really good law enforcement officers in the DEA that are great intelligence investigators. Send them over to the FBI and make them part of a real terrorism task force, not one that's focused on Americans who are doing drugs.
Absolutely, Diane, and I'd really hope for that congressional investigation. With the House in Republican hands, I don't know, but maybe we get in Democratic hands and Jared Polis or Steve Cohen. Boy, can you see them leading an investigation on this?
Yeah, but this is a bipartisan issue. I mean, you look at Justin Amash out of Michigan. True. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that we can all agree to disagree on, maybe a lot of other things, but there is places where both the Democrats and the Republicans should, in fact, play nice and hold hands, and the DEA is one such thing. I agree with you, and I think we can get the Tea Party Republicans especially over to that side, and they've got some pull with Speaker Boehner, so who knows? Yeah, you know what? You never know, which is why I'm, heading out to a Republicans group to talk about the failures of the war on drugs today. I think there's a lot of exciting things going on, and the other thing I like about Dr. Sanjay is I'm actually getting ready to film with Cheryl Schumann on the doctors the next week and this week. And there's another group that needs to evolve. And so now maybe just like, when politicians come out and say they believe that marijuana should be legalized, now that they have one of their peers who's saying it, who's very well respected, he's a neuroscience, maybe we can get them to evolve. And then so it's really, the discourse is starting to really become at a tipping point where everybody's talking about this. Yeah, it's an exciting time, and Diane Goldstein from LEAP, we so appreciate you and everything LEAP is doing in this movement because, again, you guys speak with unparalleled qualification on this issue. Thanks for being with us again, and we'll see you soon. No problem, Russ. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye.
When we come back, we have time for a radical rant. We're going to take a look at Dr. Sanjay Gupta's evolution on the issue. It's going back to 2002.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors.